Hello guys, Joker the Fool here, back at it again with the 112th episode of the Braxcast, and I don't want to bury any leads, get into really the big news of the week is a collaboration between Rippaverse Publishing and Hachette Book Group. So this is really exciting stuff. Hachette Book Group is one of the biggest book distributors in the world. And this is going to be a full-on international deal with libraries, big box retailers, not just in the US, but across the world. This is opening the door to having localizations in Latin America, Europe, Asia. So that's not an overnight thing. But the infrastructure to have Rippaverse books in like Japanese or Spanish or Portuguese is there, because instead of having to ship these books through the typical direct-to-consumer couriers like FedEx, UPS, and deal with all the custom fees and that nonsense, that's been alleviated because you have access to global wholesale distribution through Hachette Book Group. And there's also the fact of the matter that libraries are going to be included in this as well. So this is going to be effective the 6th of July. 2026, which I believe is a Monday. It's after that long weekend for the 4th of July in the States, which is nice. And this is the reason why they've shifted from this campaign/collection model where there's a release window to specific release days. Now, some release days are liable to get pushed back. Alpha Core 3 was discussed, but there's others that will be subject to change. And of course, as long as you are on the email list or you're following up on their social media, they'll be very transparent about what titles do get delayed or have to get moved into the release schedule in order to ensure that the books are being released direct to consumer alongside with hitting the shelves at the same time, which is definitely a really good way to go about it. And this isn't changing the ownership. It's still owned solely by Eric July and that direct-to-consumer model that built the Rippaverse. So you can still go to rippaverse.com, buy directly from them. And this is just being added on to the already existing business. And Ripasend is going to be included in this as well, which makes Ripasend even more of a really awesome sell for creatives. Not only just saying, hey, you have the ability to sell through the Ripasend network, but you have the ability to get your book into the big box stores much more easily than you would have yourself. Of course, there are services like Lulu and Ingram Spark, but that's really for only online distribution. But being able to sell at the wholesale volume is very unfeasible for indie creators now. I'm really interested to see exactly how Hachette's going to handle that for these smaller projects, if they're going to be willing to give that play. But it'll be really interesting to see just what the changes are, how this affects things going forward. And this is a really cool announcement from the Rippaverse. And of course, I've been supporting the Rippaverse since ISOM #1, and I've always wanted something like this to happen where they've been focused on getting out to the more general audience. So one of the things is going through that direct market, but comic shops, while they're all cool and I like comic shops and everything, it's not where people really congregate these days, especially younger readers. So getting like books into libraries is a really cool thing. I mean, I was at a library and they have like all the Avatar graphic novels there. So just being able to get like Rippaverse books and saying, hey, you can read like a copy of ISOM or Alpha Core, and then it's like, oh, I want that for Christmas. You go to Barnes & Noble and the book is there. And even if you don't, you still have someone who can go and read the books for free at the library and still become part of the fan base that way. If you can't afford it because you're like 10, don't have a job, and your parents don't have the disposable income, you can go to the library and you can read Rippaverse books in the same way you do a bunch of other comics, because libraries do tend to stock those things, even if a lot of librarians would rather you read real books, quote unquote. They still have the comics and the manga for people, for the kids to read. So this is going to be a really interesting thing. I'm going to be really interested in seeing just what the fan response is, being able to funnel people to the Rippaverse site and get people in onto the lore. Of course, if you coincide this with getting some of those animations out that we crowdfunded a couple months back. That's going to be really interesting. Of course, one of the things I think getting into this distribution deal, if you're talking about like Walmart and Target, is the Rippaverse Primeval line. So I've got this Primeval box right here, and getting like Alpha Core figures, Blood Crew figures, and instead of having, trying to get a little bit of a cheaper version of this out to fans, because this is definitely quite a elaborate little setup here. You don't need to have all of these gizmos and doodads, but it is still quite a cool thing to have. I personally really like this, and I think, if Hachette is willing to do distribution on merchandise, getting stuff like this into retailers alongside the books is going to be a really cool thing. And that's one of the things that I said would be a good way to push the Rippaverse. Now, that infrastructure is more or less getting there, because McFarlane Toys, which manufactures that Isom figure, they're going to be willing to manufacture more, especially if Hachette is putting in wholesale orders and saying, hey, we can get this out to Walmart, we can get this out to Target, we can get this out to all the big box stores. Even though I guess retail is a little bit of a dying breed, there still is a lot of people go into brick and mortar stores and still buy stuff and still impulse buy. So I still think it's a worthwhile thing to go through those physical wholesale distribution methods. I think it'd be a really good way to grow the business of the Rippaverse. So not just the books themselves, but if Hachette can, like I said, distribute the action figures and the merchandise as well, that'd be an interesting thing to see as well. I'm not sure if that's in their wheelhouse. It probably isn't. But the fact of the matter is seeing the Rippaverse working with Hachette, the people that would be willing to do that, the businesses that have that infrastructure, would certainly be saying, hey, if Hachette's going to make a deal with the Rippaverse, let's make a deal with the Rippaverse to get the Primeval line into stores. Right? It just opens a lot of doors when you have something like this. So 100%. Like I said, just interested in the implications. So this is still going to be a couple of more months. That we're at the beginning of May. It's going to happen at the beginning of July. So about 2 months from now is when this deal goes into effect and distribution starts happening. So it's probably not going to be, probably about this time next year, maybe a little bit sooner than that, is when we'll start really seeing how this affects the reader base. I would love to see the sales numbers from the Rippaverse, what their D2C and their wholesale and retail numbers are like. But of course, them being a private company and they're under no obligation to share those numbers, it still would just be really, really interesting to see this. But I am really excited for this. This probably means that in the long term, the Rippaverse is going to be like a really big thing. So I guess I'm a bit early because, I've got over 100 episodes of Braxcast. I've covered every Rippaverse book. I've reviewed just about every Rippaverse book. Got my Blood Roof 2 review coming out. I'm a little bit behind on that, but hopefully I will get it out today, Saturday, the day I'm filming. It's going to film it right after. But anyways, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out soon. I believe Alpha Core 2, Black Eyed Club, and The Cursed are all hitting soon. You got an email about that. So there's going to be a lot of Rippaverse reviews coming down the line soon. So I really got to get my nose to the grindstone and actually get to work, which is going to be really, really exciting. So hopefully you guys stay tuned for all of that. But for now, Joker is out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.